5 years on from Brexit, London remains a European city, where European Londoners are valued and cherished. You are our neighbours, colleagues, friends and loved ones. Thank you for making London your home. You are wanted here, and you always will be. I agree, mate. There should be more Europeans in London. Unfortunately, you're more likely to bump into an ISIS hostage taker or a Somalian pirate captain than you are a European in London. What I'm going to do here is point out that Brexit didn't really happen. I think that would be the crux of my argument. All of the things that people wanted to get out of Brexit, we got the exact opposite of, didn't we? Perhaps the single biggest reason the average working class stiff voted for Brexit was to get immigration down, and in what can only have been an act of purposeful spite, every year after Brexit, the UK saw more immigration, not less. In fact, it reached an all-time high under Boris Johnson, with over 1 million people moving to the UK in a single year. So they're lauding this. I mean, the Conservatives, amazingly, had the brass neck to put this on their homepage. 5 years ago today, we got Brexit done. Conservatives. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? The albino jellyfish himself is trying to brag about getting Brexit done. And then the same year we left, he brings over 1 million blokes. Sorry, poorly vetted fighting age blokes. From all four corners of the globe, like that's what people were voting for. You couldn't make it up. So I posit that the elites, the Cons, Labour, Lib Dems, Greens, SNP, all of them, as we know because they railed against it for years and made us vote on the issue no less than 4 times before they actually got us out of the EU in name only. I posit that we are still in the European Union, we're still in all of the major European institutions, we're still in the European Court of Human Rights, and the spirit of Brexit, which was more control over our borders, more sovereignty, the ability to sack your leaders, and most importantly, taking control of our own economy and our own borders, I'd argue that we got the exact opposite of what Brexit was supposed to be. And I think they did it on purpose so they can drag us back in a couple of years' time. And for anybody who's going to sit there with a straight face and say, no, they wouldn't do that, Bootneck, they wouldn't do something so blatant, just remember, these are the people who helped foreign men torture, groom and roger hundreds of thousands of British girls. If you'd sign up for that, what wouldn't you do? Okay, so ignoring this ludicrous, unbelievably necky post from the Conservatives, the neck of 10,000 giraffes on Boris Johnson and some of these Tories, ignoring this for a minute, let's discuss the number one reason why people voted to leave the European Union, shall we? Certainly from everyone I would speak to, they'll say the same thing, taking back control. That was the tagline, wasn't it? Britain, not being like our chums on the continent, doesn't spawn a dictator every 40 or 50 years. So we didn't like top-down, overbearing democracy. We liked bottom-up, go to the local town hall and shout at your MP, tell them what to do and sack them if they're useless. Democracy. That's what we liked. The Continentals have a completely different system. They're very German, so to speak. So taking back control, 3 simple words, was the perfect mantra for the Brexit movement. And if you think I'm some sort of wacky conspiracy theorist, I'll just ask you one question. Do you feel like you're in control? Do you? Being at the whim of the European Court of Human Rights, being unable to deport some of the worst scum on planet Earth because some weird Elton John gone wrong syndrome looking arsehole like Guy Verhofstadt doesn't like the idea? Want to see an example? Here's a good one. This one's only from September last year. Ugandan killer jailed for life won't be deported after murdering a man in the back of an ambulance. Yeah, a terrible idea deporting someone who beats people to death, isn't it? Awful idea. Because maybe when he gets out, we can get him a job in the corn factory. And we need people to do that. We're desperate to recruit low IQ, unskilled labourers, aren't we? From random dumps in third world countries that beat people to death in ambulances. Surely we need more of them. A killer from Uganda who murdered a man in the back of an ambulance will not be deported after a judge said it would breach his human rights. The murderer, named only as ZM, after being granted anonymity, chased his victim into an ambulance, and then beat him to death with baseball bats and golf clubs. I'm sorry, right? But it's impossible not to laugh. You hear horror stories, the BBC presents these things as horror stories as if they're fiction. You'll see some sparrow-boned soy boy on the BBC making out as if we're just making this stuff up. Like, you read this nonsense on the Daily Mail about killers not being deported because of the human rights. It's ridiculous. But they don't just kill people. They kill them in the worst and most gruesome ways. This is like something from a bad Hollywood movie. Imagine you're a female paramedic just trying to take a bloke's blood pressure, and the next thing, a geezer with a baseball bat jumps into the ambulance and goes, "1 second, pet," promptly clubs his brains out, sat in front of you. That's actually happening. It'd be one thing if he just, I don't know, accidentally killed someone in a drink driving accident or something. But this is Tommy from Goodfellas redecorate the inside of an ambulance in brain matter grey while horrified onlookers watch type shit. That this actually happens, and then we refuse to dispense justice and do the right thing, the thing that 95% of humans with functioning brains would agree with, because of, you guessed it, the court accepted that there would be serious, rapid and irreversible decline in his mental health if he was to be deported. Oh yeah, because he's definitely sane, sober as a judge, sensible as a maths teacher, totally nothing wrong with his mental health, just clubs people to death in the back of ambulances. I'll tell you what, invite him round, he can shag my sister. It was ruled that this would be a breach of his Article 3 rights under the European Convention of Human Rights, which protects individuals against inhumane and degrading treatment or torture. There's a reason we call it the Criminals Charter, the ECHR, because, as usual, we seem to put the criminals before the victims. The simple question I'd ask is, if you were the young woman or pair of paramedics or whatever that were administering treatment to someone, not combat trained, not happy to deal with extreme violence, like a bootneck or a paratrooper or something. No, just a paramedic minding your own business, trying to do a good day's work. And then you get spattered in brains because a maniac's just beaten a patient to death, sat next to you. Have you been protected from inhumane and degrading treatment or torture? Because I reckon if I was a 21-year-old female paramedic and I just got chunks of brain and spinal column spattered across my face while a Ugandan murderer beat someone to death while sat on my lap, I think that'd leave me a little bit traumatised, don't you? So as usual, the Criminals Charter strikes again. And all those horror stories you've heard people saying like, oh, we couldn't deport the triple surprise sex enthusiast because he had a cat. They're true. They're true. All right? Done. So to sum up, this is like the housing crisis and the immigration crisis and the wanton criminality and every other crisis and the grooming gangs and everything else. The government tells you one thing, the mainstream media are in lockstep with them, but you're actually getting the exact opposite of the thing, right? The European Court of Human Rights doesn't protect human rights. It protects criminals, murderers and kiddie fiddlers, and it violates you because it helps them cave your head in, burgle your granny, or bounce on your shitbox while you shriek in pain and fear. That's what these rules do. We didn't leave the European Union. We got an agreement, words are wind. We got a piece of paper that says we left the European Union, but all the meat and gravy of being in the European Union are still in place. We don't have secure borders, we don't have control, and we're at the whims of unelected bureaucrats in Brussels. And as I said, I mentioned the housing crisis because it's the same thing. They import 1 million men, they use legislation so you can't build any more houses, and then when nobody can buy a house they go, see, the free market doesn't work, capitalism doesn't work, see, there's no houses. You better be a communist, son. They've got both hands and their ballsack on the scales, and they're pretending that you're getting choice and freedom. Or in this situation, pretending that we left the European Union. We didn't. All right? That's my hypothesis. If you want to disagree, please write commie gibberish in the comments. All right? But that's just my opinion. If you disagree and you feel like Europeans don't have a say in anything, even though Ugandan brain smashers can't be deported because some random sex pest from Guy Verhofstadt Pat's home village says so, please let me know in the comments. All right, thanks for watching. I'll be live streaming tomorrow at 7 PM UK. Be there or be square. Thanks for tuning in. See you tomorrow. Toodle pip. Cheers.